with Alter Rebbe divided the chapter into two parts. Again, we're talking about the original text, and again, the original text is also laid out with much precision, as we know. The whole Tanya, the letters, the wording, the Geimer, the Chulu, every precise detail, or every detail, was written with much precision, including those chapters Alter Rebbe decided to divide into two parts. The first chapter in Tanya that Alter Rebbe divides into two parts is Perek Yudalet. And we are holding by the second part. And we tried to explain last week, what is it, why is it that this, what kind of explanation can we give that this chapter should be divided into two parts. So we said, in a certain sense, I mean, it's my little understanding over here. I haven't seen it anywhere, but it's my give, but could be that it has a basis, but just when I read it, and all along, when I come to this chapter, because Alter Rebbe, in a sense, changes the flow, or the style, or the demand, or the mandate to some degree, of the Beinoni, which we know all along. And he introduces something which is not particularly aligned with what he said, he explained till now, and he built up this edifice with all these different bricks and layers to get the exact picture and the what the Beinoni is all about. And he introduces something which is very different. Now, it's not that Alter Rebbe changes his mind, chas v'shalom, what the Beinoni is. He introduces another expression of the same Gemara, where the Alter Rebbe got his information, extracted his information to tell us what the Beinoni is. From the same Gemara, Alter Rebbe adds another few words from that original Gemara, which we'll see what it is. And from there he gives another layer, another dimension to the Beinoni. So he's not pulling back on what the Beinoni is all about. Not at all, in no form or fashion. Quite on the contrary, the Alter Rebbe says in the very beginning of this Perek Yudalet, which is the culmination of these few Yud Beis, Yud Gimel, and Yudalet, as we mentioned in the previously, that these three chapters really are the ultimate illustration, or the final illustration, what the Beinoni is. Again, Tezvav is already different levels within the Beinoni itself. So the beginning of Perek Yudalet, based on whatever the Alter Rebbe built up till now, said the Beinoni is the midas kol adam. A person has to drive to be a Beinoni, not to be a tzaddik. And again, because the tzaddik is, not to repeat this, we mentioned the nekuda, the point, numerous times, which is that the tzaddik is transformed his heart. Therefore, one should never get upset when he's not the tzaddik, because that means getting upset or believing that he is somebody that his heart is transformed and his heart is driving in a certain direction. He can get completely, it's a distortion in his Avodas Hashem when he believes he's something that he can't even achieve and he can't attain. So Alter Rebbe says, you got to be a Beinoni. Despite your heart is driving in certain directions, you have the ability, and this is your mandate, to control it. That should not, again, use the expression trespass into thought, speech, and action. And therefore you could be 100% in Teda Mitzvahs, in Machshava, Dibro, Maisa, again in the Leisa, say the negative mitzvahs and the positive mitzvahs. You're never a Rosh even once, but not a tzaddik. And those who weren't here the past week, it's worthwhile to see. It's worthwhile to see beautiful proofs, simple proofs that Alter Rebbe brings to this idea that it's a classification. The Beinoni and the Tzaddik, they're two separate worlds. And he explains why Eve said, Hashem, you created tzaddikim. How could you, Eve, the first question that Alter Rebbe asked in Tanya, what do you mean Hashem created tzaddikim? Hashem doesn't create tzaddikim, we become. Based on the Gemara, again, not to elaborate last week's class, but it's worthwhile to see how the Alter Rebbe enriches this idea based on different proofs, and especially this, which he, as he answers the question he asked on the first page of Tanya about Eve's turn to Hashem, Barosa tzaddikim, and so on. But here, and again, as a separate idea that Alter Rebbe introduces to the Beinoni, to the very Beinoni, the idea that he should, I don't know if it's to say periodically, but to some degree, it's not periodically, to say periodically means it's in time, but in a certain, behind the overt avoid as a Beinoni, he can know that he could try to tap in a little bit into the Teit Tzaddik. Where does Alter Rebbe get his information? It said the whole thing you're telling me is a Beinoni, not a Tzaddik. Alter Rebbe says, I can't ignore what the Shvuah, when they make the Neshama swear, when they make the Neshama swear There should be Tehit Tzadik Valti Rasha. There should be a Tzadik not to be Rasha. So the Alter Rebbe till now elaborated on the latter part of the Mashbi Meisei, what they make him swear, do not be a Rasha. Hence the Abeinani. Because this is what the Abeinani is all about. Never a Rasha. Don't ever be a Rasha. You'll have the signal, but don't ever give in to that signal. Never be a Rasha. So the whole build-up till now is based on the latter part of this Shavua, which is based on the end of the Gemara in the Tractate of Nida, which the Alter Rebbe introduces in the very first words of Tanya, that when the Neshama comes down, Tanya we learned, right? Tanya is based on the first word of Tanya. We learned in the end of the third chapter in the Tractate of Nida, Mashbi Meisei, they make the Neshama swear, be a tzaddik and don't be a rasha. So the whole, up till now, the Alter Rebbe is explaining us basically, the Beinani, which means Al Ti Rasha, don't be a Rasha, don't ever be a Rasha. Why do I tell someone to don't be a Rasha so many times? Because he's always on the verge of Chas v'Shalom. He can slip because he's not a tzaddik, and therefore his heart has really never been not only transformed, it's never really been even made a serious dent in his heart. Meaning that his heart is always sending him, or can always send him these signals. So you tell the person, never be a Rasha. It means be a Beinani. But Alter Rebbe here, in this part, and that's why I believe it's divided, is because Alter Rebbe taps into the first part of the Shvuah of this where you tell the tzaddik, the person, the neshama is told as it descends into this world, Ti tzaddik be a tzaddik. Which right away, in a sense, before even you get, before you go on, Alter Rebbe's explanation over here apparently seems to contradict. Because the whole verse Alter Rebbe is telling the Beinani, Al Tihi Rasha. So what does it mean you tell the Beinani Ti Tzaddik? You're just telling the person the whole time you're not a tzaddik. And not only you're not a tzaddik, you're not shaykhis, it's not relevant to you, the whole Aved of tzaddikim. So how can you tell the person Ti Tzaddik? It seems again, not only it does not align with it, it seems to contradict this whole form of Aveda, which the Alter Rebbe is telling the average person what his mandate in this world, which is more Al Tihi Rasha. So nonetheless, again, this is part of the Shvuah, this is part of the oath which the Neshama takes. So how does it fit into the life of the Beinani? So here the Alter Rebbe explains a separate part of Peri Gedal. We'll go on in the text that with this, it's understood the double expression in the Shvuah, which is in this oath which the Yid takes before the Yid is given, the Neshama is given as it descends into this world. It says, Take tzaddik, Bal Ti Rasha, be a tzaddik, and do not be a Rasha, L'chayda Tomor, which apparently it's Tomor, which means its wonder is, as in other words, Miyacher, which means if they reach such a level, in other words, that it's demanded from him, to the extent that they place this oath on the neshama, be a tzaddik, why do you have to tell him, don't be a rasha? Which means Alter Rebbe is really in the very beginning of this part of Azay Yuvan, is not trying to reconcile from in the very first part of this piece of Azay Yuvan. Alter Rebbe is bringing a proof from Tehei Tzaddik Val Tihi Rasha to his whole understanding of what Al Tihi Rasha is, in other words, to the Aved of the Beinani. Because Alter Rebbe says, if not, it's redundant. Or not only it's redundant, I think it's more than redundant. If you tell a person Tihi Tzaddik, so why do you just say Al Tihi Rasha? You tell a person, stay in the clean part of this house. It means you're supposed to be a clean person. Stay in this clean part of the house. You don't have to make an emphasis. Don't go play with dirt, because you're telling a person, stay in this clean part of the house. It's already understood. You're telling that you belong to cleanliness. You're a clean person. You don't have to tell the same person which already you're putting him in that domain, in that clean domain. Don't go play with dirt. So the Alter Rebbe is really bringing initially. He's bringing a proof. Not it's a question he's reconciling, but he's bringing a proof. The fact that the Eibishter places the yoke of the Malach, as the Gemara says, Mashbi Meisei, they make the Neshama take that oath that Tihi Tzaddik Val Tihi Rasha, that itself says that one is independent of the other. And in the Lashon, in the expression of Alter Rebbe, because they make the Neshama swear to be a Tzaddik, why do you have to make them swear again to be a Rasha, not to be a Rasha? The answer, because the first part, Tihi Tzaddik, may not be applicable to him. That's why you have to add. And again, an example we say, when a person is really, in essence, a very clean person, and you just try to tell him, you got to be in the clean domain. You don't have to tell him don't play with dirt. But what if a guy is not a clean person? What if the person is not clean? The child. He likes getting his hands dirty. He likes getting himself dirty. He has an inclination to get himself dirty, as an example. So then, that person, you have to tell him, not only don't be in the clean, not only make sure to be in the clean domain, stay away from playing with dirt. Why would you tell him? Because he's inclined to play with dirt. So that type of person, you have to tell him a double expression. And this Alter Rebbe is again bringing a proof that it's not the tzaddik, because the tzaddik you don't have to tell him al tihi rasha. The tzaddik has no interest in being a rasha. As we mentioned the other day, to the tzaddik, anything which is not aligned with Ratzon Hashem is truly dirt. Just like you don't have to tell a person, don't have a drive to play with something which is dirty. A healthy person stays away from something dirty. Don't have a drive to. A healthy person doesn't have a drive to taste it, to not to tamper with something which is smelly. As an example, this is my blunt expression, but to tzaddik, anything which is not aligned with Ratzon Hashem is completely dirty, which means he has an abhorrence, he has a hatred to it. So, if it was the tzaddik, if it wasn't the Beinoni message which the neshama is getting, you didn't have to really tell the person to eat tzaddik al tihi rasha. Because Tehit Tzaddik is Tehit Tzaddik. You don't have to introduce him al tihi. But because you're dealing with somebody that, like we say, the example, that he is inclined to play with dirt, which means it's the person which has not transformed his heart, and he can have, and he does have an inclination to things which are unclean, impure, so therefore additional to tell him Tehit Tzaddik, you have to tell him al tihi rasha. As Dr. Rebbe says, Ein kol adam zeich li tzaddik. Not everybody is meritorious to be a tzaddik. Ve'lo, the mishpat abchira bazeh, a man does not have that exact, precise choice to be a tzaddik. Kol kach lis'anig al Hashem be'emes, that his whole pleasure should be a godly pleasure. His whole delight should be about God. Not everybody has that choice. V'shiyarab moz mamish be'emes, that evil should be completely abhorrent and disgusted, truly. Not everybody has that choice, as we all know it. V'lochein, and therefore after the neshama is told to take the oath to tzaddik, the malach, whoever introduces this oath to the neshama, mashbim shenis, they make the neshama swear again, al tihi rasha, take the oath that at least you won't be a rasha. Shebazeh, al kol panim, at least, shebazeh, mishpat abchira, with this there is the clear choice, barishus nesuna, and the ability which is given l'chaladim to every person, limshal b'ruch tavasi, to govern in the spirit as a temptation of his lust, which he has in his heart, again, which his heart is dictating or suggesting to, or is driving, the heart is being driven into taivus, into temptations which are contrary to Ratzon Hashem. This is, again, based on the Alter Rebbe's explanation, and as we know it, is given the complete authority and governing force in order to control the spirit of my temptation. The 100% ability, capability, and ability to conquer my Yitzhar. That we should not be a rush even one moment. Kol yom of all his days, maybe in the negative mitzvahs, the 365 mitzvahs which Hashem told us not to do, also not to be laid back and to be careful and scrupulous of the Vasei Tev, all the mitzvahs Hashem told us to do, and the Ein Tev Ela Teira, and the main Tev, which is Teira, the Talmud Teira Kineged Kulam. He's also careful. We have every year has the ability to be careful also until the Talmud Teira, which again corresponds to all the mitzvahs. So at this part we see over here, the Alter Rebbe is really, you could even say it's a follow-up, even though the Alter Rebbe is introducing something which he didn't deal with till now, but here he's introducing it not as to reconcile, because again on the surface, Tzaddik or al tihi rasha, but quite on the contrary, the first part of this Pedic, or this part, the Alter Rebbe uses it as a proof, because if it was about the Tzaddik, Tzaddik is enough. You have to add al tihi rasha, because not everybody's merits to be a tzaddik. A tzaddik is more a gift. Like we said last week, it's like a kohen. The idea of kohen is not something which one could reach to be a kohen. as we said last week also about Avraham Avinu was told that he's lucky to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu and to have the delight with Hashem Me'ein Elam Haba, similar to Elam Haba. We know Elam Haba is more in the package of reward, not Aveda. And the same thing, tzaddik is kind of a reward. Some of them is meritorious to be received. That term tzaddik, and again, it's not a term. The idea that a person simchu tzaddikim b'Hashem, he could rejoice. His constant joy should be solely in God. His pleasure, his elation, his delight should be solely in God. That's a special schus. So because of that, additional to telling the Yid, take the Yid to be a tzaddik. Al tirosh. Even the times you're not zeicha to be a tzaddik, but at least al tirosh. And this is within the 100% ability within the person, attainability within the person to be not to be a rosh. Here the Alter Rebbe though into ach means to say. So in the end of the day, are we talking to the tzaddik or are we talking to the beinoni? This is where the Alter Rebbe comes in with this a new idea over here. And he tells the beinoni from time to time, or overall, you should try to tap in to the tzaddik experience as well. So make no mistake, the Alter Rebbe is not telling us something different to what he told us before. He just tells us, like you tell a person who's there's certain people who they always make sure to check into a 5-star hotel because that's their lifestyle. 5-star hotel, right? An average person that can't afford it, it's okay. He needs a pillow and a good clean room, but sometimes you tell them, sometimes you don't have to stick to that 2-star hotel always. You have the ability, try to be a 5, try to just check into the 5-star hotel also. But you're not telling him that that's who he is, that he's a person who could afford all the time this luxury type of travel or life and so on. No. You say that because it's open to you and it's something interesting and it might be good, try to tap into it from time to time. But here it's not on the time to time of the clock from till 12 o'clock or from 12 o'clock or from 12 to 1 or from 1 to 2. It means that overall we tell the beinoni that you're not shaykh to the Aved of the tzaddik, but periodically tap in or try to know that it's open for you. Like there's no closed door in front of that 5-star hotel that says, no, these are for a certain type of people. It's really open to everybody. So Alter Rebbe says the beinoni should know that the doors of the tzaddik are open, the Aved of the tzaddik are open. Try to tap into it. Now, so this is, and why is Alter Rebbe so determined to tell this to us or tell the beinoni? What's wrong that he should be a beinoni? Al tirosh, kol yom, he should be a rosh, he should be a beinoni. But Alter Rebbe is namely getting his information from the Gemara itself. The Gemara itself says to hit tzaddik. So if he's talking about the beinoni, someone who does not have the merit to be the tzaddik, he's not meritorious to have that tainug lisanig al Hashem on a constant basis. So really he's the beinoni. So in essence the Gemara should have said, Al tirosh. So Alter Rebbe said, extracts from that Gemara that in the end of the day, the same person, not only you're talking about two different people, in other words, till the ach means however, till the ach, the Alter Rebbe is really saying that the message which Mashbi Meisei Tei Tzadik Bal Tirosh is really talking about two separate people. And Am Yisrael, you have tzaddikim, you have beinonim. So the first part, tzaddik, if you're shaykh to be a tzaddik, be a tzaddik. If you're shaykh to be a beinoni, al tirosha, but it's two different messages to do different type of people, type of yid. The ach, which means however, the Alter Rebbe is telling us that the same beinoni, which really what is pertinent to you is the al tirosha, you should know that you should try to tap into tzaddik as well. That is the ach. Ach means however, that it's not to separate people, even to the beinoni. And again, I believe very strongly that it's because of this new Rebbe introducing a new idea into the life, into the framework of Aveda, of the beinoni. That's my understanding what Alter Rebbe kind of divides it, compartmentalizes this Perek. Till Vazei Yuvad belongs to before, but now I want to introduce you to something else. That the same Al Tirosha, the same individual, you say Al Tirosha, which is the beinoni, where he's told that Teit Tzaddik. Nonetheless, he has to establish times. Yeah, see, it is based on certain times. I used the word periodic, and I thought it wasn't so accurate, but interesting. They'll tell you they use the lashon itim in certain times. The overall you're a beinoni, but in the end of the day, everything is broken up to times, 24 hours and minutes and seconds and so on. There's certain times of your day, and again, it's not on the clock, but in certain times, which is based on certain experiences in the person's avodas Hashem. He has to also luscious eitzes benafshi, he has to places, eitzes, suggestions, and eventually his meyes berah, to also be abhorrent in evils. Kigain, for example, which is the suggestion of our chachamim, which deal, again, as one's giving a shir over here, actually to a group of women. Right? What's going on over here? Chas v'chalila, the Torah should, not going to elaborate much because it's understood. It's when we'll elaborate, maybe that's when it won't be understood. It's understood because we have to elaborate. Torah chas v'shalom will never deride Hashem's creation. And not only Hashem's creation, Hashem began giving the Torah, by the way, right? He started with the women before the men. The woman is precious in Hashem's eyes in so many different ways, so many things we learn. I mean, have to go on. The Isha Ksheda, the Kol Kvuda Bas Melech Pnima, the Isha Ksheda B'Yisrael, the most greatest halachas, the other day we were speaking about the prayer, which is a fundamental in Avodas Hashem. Many halachas of prayer we learn from Chana, not even from the men. I mean, it's a silly thing to say of Chas V'Shalom, the woman would not be Chas V'Shalom derided in no form or fashion in a Gemara.
But
just simply,
why
it's just in being challenged. What?
Why the harsh language?
Why the harsh language, right?
Yeah.
But the idea of it is it's more not telling Chas V'Shalom, describing it's the problems which man would have in his attraction of the opposite.
Right. So why not put it in the terms of the man being in the subject position? It's not the woman who's the problem, it's the man's desire.
Yeah, but you have to tell, in the end of the day, what are you going to tell the man? Your desire, there's something wrong with your desire.
If it's not governed by halacha and it's not channeled properly.
But no, but yes, but it's correct. But in the other, in a sense, because it's so innate within man. And these are pretty much the challenges, as we mentioned so many times. When you're dealing with machshava, particularly with thought, I want you to keep a clean thought. In what context is it? Is that he shouldn't think about opening up a light on Shabbos? Absolutely not. It is all, or primarily, I'd add more so predominantly, in the context of tznius, modesty. And therefore, this is why it's so challenging. It's not like someone to tell someone, when you have to cook on Yom Tov, so you have to say something wrong about the blinsa which you're trying to cook. Because it's not something innately ingrained. And you have to tell the person, the Chachamim felt that to tell the person that this which you're so, like I say, it's not something which is external. To say, you know what, that which it's not going to come out good if you're going to cook it on Yom Tov. Then you have to say something wrong with the latka, the blinsa. Say, this is the halacha. Like, in this case, it's something so innate within man. This is the main challenge which man has. It's the main challenge, and it's an innate challenge.
There's a footnote in my edition in English saying that this is a reference to when she is a nida. And as a Kala teacher, I find this really difficult because one of the things I really underline with my Kalas is that nida is a spiritual state, which we rectify through physical means by immersion in the mikvah, but there's not a sense that there's anything that's dirty about a woman who has a period.
Right.
But it's very hard to get around this language.
Okay, but I want to just say also, so again, one thing it's clear, that just to tell man, in his, you see, let me just take it one step back. How did Avraham Avinu look at Sari Meinu? Or how did Avraham Avinu look at a tzaddik, a real tzaddik, not say a real tzaddik, someone who's on this level. His tainug is in godliness. Anything else, he doesn't have any lust and desires, the things which the average man does. And the tzaddik would give a blessing to a woman, or talk to a woman, or the woman would consult with the tzaddik. Do you think that he looks at her in a very deriding manner based on this? Not at all. Because the tzaddik streets say straight through to the core of the beauty of the woman. Beauty meaning, say, that Eishes Chayil, the potential, the great level which a woman has. By the way, it does say that the reason why women don't have the mitzvahs, particular mitzvahs, because everything about them is one mitzvah. They're so devoted to God, and they're so everything about them is stands in a constant subordination to the Creator, to something higher, which is ultimately Hashem. Torah mitzvahs. They don't need these specific detail. The man, the bum, he does need it.
Are we addressing the Beinoni or the Rasha?
No, this is telling the Beinoni to hit tzaddik. So let's have it clear. Here you're talking about, so again, and I'm saying this through. What?
It's a perspective of a Rasha.
Why?
To talk about a woman as a vessel full of filth. To see her.
This is being recorded over here. We'd rather just. I definitely didn't say because it shouldn't be taken negatively.
Yeah,
We're dealing with Chachamim, which represent God. They were saying it. They were saying it in the context, helping the person in this attraction, which at times, especially like you're saying, the time of, for example, Nita, right? They're helping the person in his attraction, which could be an inappropriate attraction at the time. You should know this, that, and the other. Now, why do you have to tell it to him so strong? Because if he's a Fruma Yid, let's say, why does he have that attraction? Why is he attracted to something that Torah says that it's inappropriate, especially the way you're saying it at this time? I'm going to put in the context of the overall lust, which the innate lust which man has. But even based on if you're saying that footnote, I didn't notice the footnote, but let's say you're talking about a Fruma Yid. Why do you have to tell him anything? That's it. Torah says, why is he having it? Let's put it. The question is different. Why does he have that? Why does he have that attraction? The answer is because he's not looking through the perspective and the eyes of Torah on the woman. Because if he would, and Torah mandates right now that there has to be a sense of separation, so why do you have the attraction? The answer is because you're looking from the animal dimension within you, which the animal dimension is innate not only to, not to your own wife, to someone else. It's only animal. And this is what we say, that we mention time and again, that this is the Beinoni, that he walks in the street, he has to make sure that his thoughts are pure. His eyes are not looking something which he's not supposed to. Well, it's based on Torah, it's not the Tanya. Why do you have to tell the Fruma Yid to do so? Do you have to tell the Fruma Yid to be so careful and not to open the light on Shabbos? I mean, it's halacha. The answer is because when he has this taiva, it's not coming from the godly soul. When a godly soul relates to the opposite, maybe like I say in pure times, or like you say in sometimes in the context of a spiritual connection, or like we said, that tzaddik looks at somebody or deals with somebody or talks to somebody, if it's a bracha or so on. It's only coming from the nefesh elikis, from the godly soul. When a person looks, and despite the Torah says no, and again, may it be specifically in the case which you're mentioning from the Gemara, or may it be that a person has his eyes on people he should not be involved with, right? Why? Where is it coming from? Torah says no, and I, as a Fruma Yid, I'm driven to that. What's being driven to that? It means to say you're looking from the very animalistic look, and your attraction and your temptation is because there's something in that opposite person, or the person of the opposite gender, which is pulling you in that direction. In other words, what part of the opposite gender is attracting you? That's where the Torah comes and says it is something certainly not healthy within your mind and your temptation to that other person, not in what you're attracted to, and in your mind that sense of attraction, where is it coming from? It's not coming from a pure part of you. It's coming from a very animalistic part of you. And that's why you have to tell the person, despite he's a from a yid, why do you have to tell him that if his wife's, like you're saying, based on this, that he has to stand in separation? Why does he have an interest? Because he's not looking from the purity of the woman. If he were looking at the purity of the woman, he would make sure or like we said again, in the overall challenge with the Beinoni has, if he was always looking at the purity of the woman, which again exists, like we mentioned time and again, there's nobody who aggrandizes the level of the woman like Torah does. But if the person was living such a life that that's the way he would look at the woman, he wouldn't look at other things which are inappropriate, or look at other people, or let's say other women, or so on. I mean, if you want to break this down over here, he wouldn't have a certain temptation, even like you say, even time when Torah says he's not supposed to. If he would only be looking at the purity of his own wife or any other person. The fact that he still has the temptation is there's two things. First of all, he's not looking on the purity of the woman. Quite on the contrary, he's looking from the very animalistic glasses, animalistic eyes, and animalistic heart, and therefore what he's looking for is also things which are animalistic. And that's what the Chachamim say. This, what you're looking at, you should know that it's they're trying to calm and bring down that temptation. You should know that it's like the Alter Rebbe continues, like all other pleasures and delicacies of this world. Eventually, nothing happens to them because there's no godly purpose. As opposed to elation, excitement, temptation, to things which are godly, to rejoice, to exhilarate, the sense of ecstasy, rather, in God and godliness. This is something which is true by definition, and therefore it's everlasting. It's holy forever. It's exciting forever. It's exciting by definition, as opposed to part-time excitements, which in the end of the day, it's like, for example, when you tell a child, sometimes a child doesn't appreciate to be diapered. I'd rather be the way I am. Don't bother me. It's like a child, it happens to a 2-year-old, right? Don't bother me. He wants to play. He doesn't want to be washed down. So one of the things you say, it's not only you say, it's just not clean. You want to rather run around with something dirty. It's just not clean. Come, I'll show you. There's something. There's a clean part of it. There's a clean. So the whole thing is not the whole thing. You're going to say the whole idea of it's the greatest blessing if you think about it. I mean, that's what we say Asher Yatsa. It's the greatest blessing that Hashem created the person such. But the blessing is the blessing, and the dirt is the dirt, remains dirt. So a person is just even this halacha, or this idea that a person, just experienced something that Hashem made him healthy, that he's able to, how do you say, to empty himself. Let's use rather more of a clean space. He comes out of the Brach, Baruch Asher Yatsa Sa'adim Chachma. And this is the most greatest part. We thank Hashem. We don't interrupt. We wash our hands. And we thank Hashem for this great blessing that Hashem created us in a way that we. So then someone's going to say, "Oh, that's the case. If I made Asher Yatzar, so therefore deal with the negative part also, which is no. What dirt is dirt. The good part is the healthy part. The healthy part that I'm a healthy person, so I can say Asher Yatzar. And that's why you tell a child, which is insensitive to the fact that this is dirty, it's dirty, it's not going to be too good for you. It's the same idea. There's nobody, I don't have to say it, I have to say you have to stand for Torah, say no one puts the woman so high like the Torah was given first to the woman. The Tefillah, we learn everything from the woman. Everything, the schus of men learning, everything is really, the Torah's look on the woman is nothing greater than that, because because there's certain purity which exists in the woman even more than the man. Sure. But if that was the way man looked at the woman, Torah wouldn't have to say anything. Or if that's the way man, again, this is the nekuda. If that's the way man looked at a woman, so he wouldn't, as a from a yid, he wouldn't have an attraction to his woman when Torah says do not. or he wouldn't have any problems with tests and challenges in the non-sneezdike mind and machshava and thought, which is namely the hardest challenge of the Beinoni. This is what we're dealing with. And again, it's not based on Tanya. Teira has to say, who is Teira talking to? Don't go after your hearts. Teira's talking to the Beinoni. This holy Jew which never sinned once in his life, but you have a heart, and your heart, is fully intact. So you have something within yourself that your approach, you could look at the same pure person, but with your animalistic heart, you're looking at a very different dimension. That's why you have a animalistic attraction. Animalistic attraction. So I was standing with the other day with somebody, one of Balabatim movie, and he says that he meets Frumme Yidden here and there. He says, you think they're Frumme Yidden, and he didn't tell me the names, and he said, think they're Frumme Yidden. He says they sit down in a coffee shop. It's like they have to say, this guy's not even Frum. He says this is in the coffee shop. He said that if you took off their hat and jacket and beard, they think their eyes are going every direction. I was disappointed to hear it, but it's the idea of the eyes are looking with the way Teda looks at the woman. Not at all. It's pure animalistic. So this is where the Teda comes and says, I didn't think I have to elaborate so much because it's so obvious. This is where the Teda comes and says, digs deeper. Instead of telling the person, yes, you have this innate attraction, and yet you should know that in other words, like you tell the child forcefully, it is not good to sit in an unclean diaper, as an example. You just take him by the hand and you bring him and you change him, you make him clean. There's another step that you could tell the child, or he grows a little older, and you could tell him you should know that it's dirty. And if it's dirty, there's nothing good going to come out of something. Even though on the surface he'd rather play the game with his unclean investment. So the first thing you tell him, you grab him, you change him, you make him clean. And that's the first part of the Beinoni. You can't iskafia, bend yourself, submit yourself, despite you have a temptation. You got to break yourself. You got to make sure your eyes are kept holy, and your mind is kept holy, which is the challenge of machshava. In order, you should be able to never be a Russia one moment. Because if you do, you leave your eyes flow and stray in the wrong direction, you're a Russia. The Teda says you have to make sure that your eyes are kept holy. Then there's another thing you tell them, that you try to the Beinoni explains himself, and what's going to be the end of all this. This is what the Gemara says. And the same thing in what you say, this is the footnote. When you tell somebody, why does the Gemara have to tell to someone? Because this is someone who's not looking from a Teda perspective. He's not looking for the Teda side. Teda is saying it's a time of separation. Why does he have this attraction? The answer is because he's looking through an animal soul. If he's looking at an animal soul, he sees the things which he looks at the other gender, the other person, not of the special quality of the other person. He's looking in quite on the contrary. He's looking everything else other than the special quality of the other person. That's why you have to tell him what you're looking at, which is, again, what is connecting is your animal soul to a non-appropriate dimension. That's what you have to tell the person. And now that's the Teit Tzadik. In other words, nothing good is going to come out. Just want to say in a few lines. The Rebbe is not dealing with this. Everything is a delicacy, because in the end of the day, when a person is going to overly indulge in the physical, what happens in the end? There's nothing everlasting and nothing contributing to the person. Nothing. It's like the person, the sense of regret, for example, the person has at certain times. You know the famous story of this one's father was taking his son to the mikveh. It was bar mitzvah, I think, or something. And today we have a mikveh. It's like nice and hot and comfortable and so on. But in the olden times, mikveh, you went to the lake. What if it was winter? You broke the ice and you went to the ice. Chassidim used to make sure never daven without going to the mikveh in a way that this was a zehirus by them, based on says Shulchan Aruch, and it was a bechal to tefillah to stand in front of the Eibishter. So this was, he was educating his child. Took him, I think it was again his days bar mitzvah. They broke the ice, and the child goes in. But once you go in, especially in the winter, the water is particularly warm. Because under the ice, yes, under the ice, because it's not exposed to the cold weather. Inside, it's warmer than a regular, could be a regular summer day when it's exposed. If it's cold out there, like the last 2 days, the waters are not ice, but the water is colder than a winter day when it's under the ice. Fact. So the kid goes in, and later, and he comes out. When he comes out, when it's a winter day, it's so cold, and the water's ice. So you can imagine how so he said later in his life, he said, he learned the lesson of the difference of he learned the lesson of the difference of mitzvah and aveda. He says the difference is they're both u and a. The difference is what comes first. This is the way the story goes. When a person does a mitzvah, it's many times it's like shver. He has to strain himself. He has to make sure, especially like they say here, in life says to keep a pure thought and speech and action, and then exert himself to make sure every mitzvah is done right and Talmud. So it's But then he wakes up in the next morning, or Bechlal, he goes and goes, it's Amchai. It's a connection to the Eibishter, and it's all good. So David is just the opposite. In the beginning, it's all comfortable and so. But then he realizes he pains. He has that natural pain the person has that he disconnected himself with the Eibishter because he allowed his nefesh bahamis to express itself or overly express itself and overly indulge it. So that's what he says. When I went in, it was warm, it was good. When I came out, it was. So he says the difference of mitzvah and aveda is the same. And the question what comes first, and this is basically what he's telling you. You let your nefesh bahamis expand itself. What happens in the end? Nothing good happens in the end. So the first part of it is, it says he's giving it because it's a harder challenge. So he has to creep a little deeper and saying you're not looking from the right glasses, and therefore you're attracted to something which is truly animalistic from your eyes. A tzaddik, what we give you, a tzaddik doesn't see anything negative, or he doesn't. When he would talk, a true tzaddik, and Avraham Avinu spoke to a woman as an example, it wasn't a challenge because he dealt his Avraham Avinu-ness, the nefesh halikis, was directly connected to the purity of the woman. You have to tell him anything. Chazal tell us because when you're looking through the glass of the animalistic glass, and therefore to you're looking at the part which is something which can be classified as negative. Chas v'shalom, it's not a negative term to the purity of the Isha Ksheira B'Yisrael. And so too, kol minei natanim. And mechein kol tanug elam hazeh, hachacham reis haneled. All the delicacies of this world, the chacham. Now we got to go. Chacham reis haneled. In other words, the wise person sees what is going to be produced of them. Shesefel lirkav, everything is going to be spoiled. Izrima b'ashpa is going to be ultimately wormy and so on and dirty and so on. And just the opposite. Lisanig, to derive pleasure, l'ismech b'Hashem, to rejoice in Hashem. Adis beinus b'dusing sabarchu, through pondering the greatness of Hakadosh Baruch Hu, kifi yicholti, according to his ability, even though again he's not the tzaddik. Afshi yideh b'nafshi shlo yagil madrigas b'emes lamite. He's not going to reach this level truly be'emes lamiti, which is a double expression of emes, because he's not a tzaddik. Can be a dimyainus. Sometimes it's illusionary. It's an illusion. But nonetheless, avapakein hu yaseh shalei. He should do his l'kaim sashush mishbim te tzaddik. That to fulfill the swear that Hashem tells him, in other words, that oath, to fulfill that oath that Hashem did make him swear to hitei tzaddik. And Hashem yasatei beinam. Don't worry for God. When a God sees that the person is tapping into this beautiful life of the tzaddik, Hashem might open little windows when he sees that the person is adamant and determined to fulfill that oath. And the reason, again, not stamazeh, it's not pertinent to him, but he's going to territory where it doesn't belong to him. The fact that when the neshama comes down, Hashem did make the neshama swear to tzaddik, says Hashem has an interest in it. The overall is a beinani. But when he sees that the beinani is tapping into something that in essence is not his life, Hashem yasatei beinav, Hashem will do the good in his eyes and perhaps open windows that the person could truly, or at least periodically, have a true joy and elation and a pleasure in God and godliness and so on. So I would have liked to finish the painting, but it is late. We'll try to conclude next week.